Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nicole Antonopoulos, Sustainability Director. I am here this evening with Jeff Bauman, Traffic Engineer and Interim City Engineer, and Jenny Neiman, our Climate Program Manager. The team is here to provide transportation information and seek direction on transportation-specific policies and initiatives. Through the F.A.I.R process, we were asked to provide information regarding city's engineering standards as it relates to speed limits and design characteristics of roadways, to provide information on the Vision Zero approach, and adjusting values/priorities to serve pedestrians first, cyclists second, public transit, followed by car, share, taxi, and then lastly, private personal vehicles. We want to take this opportunity to also provide the council with an update on the big shift, because everything we're discussing tonight could be tools that Flagstaff uses to usher in the big shift. I do want to press pause for a second and let you know that we've added one slide to the slide deck, so you do not have that in your council packet, and that will be slide number 38, so it will be later in the presentation. Our presentation is broken down into 3 sections. The first section is transportation safety, which will focus on current practices and alternative approaches. The second section is engineering design standards, which will focus on level of service, vehicle miles traveled, and mode prioritization. The third section will provide an update on what is currently in motion for the big shift. Council, the presentation is dense with a lot of information. Our intent is to provide enough information, but not to overwhelm you with concepts and principles. Because we will be seeking direction from you, at the end of sections 1 and 2, staff will pause to discuss and seek direction. Now, before we dive in, I'd like to revisit the roots of the big shift and how the discussion supports it tonight. The big shift is critical to achieving our carbon neutrality goals, supporting the active transportation master plan, which will be before you next week, and numerous commitments to bicycle and pedestrian safety and infrastructure development. The big shift is not one action, it is not one policy, and it is not one program. What it is a constantly evolving framework, which requires bold action, bold decisions, active engagement, active listening, funding, and staffing. I invite you to consider the concepts discussed this evening as ingredients to the big shift recipe. And with that, I would like to hand the presentation over to Jeff Bauman.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jeff Bauman, City Traffic Engineer and Interim City Engineer. I've been struggling with my voice a bit. I don't have COVID, I checked, but struggling with my voice a bit. And so this is my gift when I got to the podium, some Clorox wipes. So we'll see if we make it through tonight. I've got cough drops in my pocket and Clorox wipes here. We should be good. Let's see, we're jumping right into the first of the 3 topics. I'm going to take care of the first 2. And the first one is transportation safety. So the first area, we want to go through a number of things that we do currently at the City of Flagstaff. So the first one is a brand new item, the annual crash report. We created, it's about a 20-page document, and we created this over the last several months and actually presented it to the Transportation Commission last week in a draft form. So basically it's 5 years of crash data, so we can see trends. We highlight a couple of safety projects that we've completed over the past couple of years to see if those safety projects are having positive impact. So I think we highlighted flashing yellow arrows. And then we highlighted some left turn phasing changes we did out at Marketplace and 89. And then we also identify a couple of things that we'd like to work on over the next year in that crash report. So it's kind of like a mini version of what some of these other larger strategies are that we'll get to in a couple of slides. Also, the Regional Strategic Transportation Safety Plan is a plan that's updated every 5 years. My notes say that 2018 was the last time we completed that. That's a Metro Plan effort. Last time they did it with a couple of other, I think NACOG, CYMPO. There was a couple of MPOs and COGs that did this together. And one of the main things that came out of that that plan for us was identifying these regional problem areas and identifying projects that may be eligible for certain grant programs like HSIP. Something we recently contributed to and was just completed last calendar year, the ADOT State Highway Rail Grade Crossing Action Plan. Some highlights of that was statewide, but some highlights for us were it identified the Cottage Avenue spur crossing as an active crossing when it actually wasn't. And we were able to initiate action with the Arizona Corporation Commission to get that closed. That's actually happening tomorrow. Hopefully it's on their consent agenda, so we're hopeful. It also identified some pedestrian safety issues we had at our San Francisco and Beaver crossings, and we've incorporated some pedestrian gates and some other strategies in that downtown mile grant application. So just little tidbits sometimes come out of these plans that can be helpful for us. Operation Lifesaver, many of you have probably heard of Operation Lifesaver. That's a partnership the city has with the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe, and it's mostly outreach and public education. We have a couple of staff members that are trainers. The program has gone pretty quiet with COVID, but I suspect it'll start coming back. But the idea is that there's some city employees, they're both in transportation, and they can go out, you get the little yellow keychains and you go to schools and talk to kids about crossing safety. So that's something that we do, but hasn't been real active with COVID. Sorry, I gotta touch the mouse. Safe Streets for All grant, SS4A, you may have heard about that. That's also a Metro Plan initiative. They've recently submitted this $200,000 application for a safety action plan, and it's focused on vulnerable road users. So that's typically pedestrians and bikes, not on the whole system. But that's an application that's in, so we're hopeful, a new program. You never know how those grants will go. And the last two are not the last two, but the next two are the crash modification factors, CMFs, and the highway safety manual, and those work together. Crash modification factors you maybe have heard us talk about when we talk about the HSIP roundabout projects. So crash modification factors are, give you an example, if we have a signalized intersection and we're seeing 100 crashes a year, that's not a real number at all, but we're seeing 100 crashes a year, and the crash modification factor for converting that to a roundabout might be like a 0.7. So it would be, you'd see 70% less crashes. So that's what crash modification factors are, and it's a huge database of peer-reviewed studies. They have them, 1 star, 2 star, 4 star, so you know how reliable these studies are. But we use that when we identify different crash patterns. It helps us identify mitigation. Highway Safety Manual works with that. They work together, so that's why they're placed together. And the last thing is the Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is HSIP or HSIP. You've heard about these projects. We've been successful over the years. It's been a program that's been around for quite a while. ADOT administers it, so when they have a call for projects, we apply. It is federal money. You'll recognize some of these projects. Roundabouts have really good crash modification factors, so they tend to have really good benefit to cost ratios, and that's what this program's all about. The benefits of the crashes that won't happen because of the improvement you're making need to be much greater than the cost of the improvement. That's the benefit cost ratio. So for Cedar Locker, Turquoise, and Schweitzer Canyon, roundabouts, sign replacement program, we did that a number of years ago. So we replaced every sign in the city to upgrade them to better retroreflectivity to meet new federal standards. Countdown pedestrian signals were part of the program. We replaced all the guardrails in Flagstaff a handful of years ago and updated all crosswalks and stop bars with better performing materials. So that was thermoplastic and epoxy. So those have been really good programs for us. Here's just a brief, quick picture, and these graphs or tables came out of the annual crash report. And this gives you an idea of how many serious injury crashes on the right and how many fatal crashes on the left that we are, this is our record in Flagstaff. So this includes the ADOT routes, the city routes. You can see we broke out interstate from surface streets. But this is the problem that we're typically trying to address with these safety programs, is those fatalities and serious injury crashes. There are certainly other crash types, the smaller, possible injury, no injuries, property damage onlys. Those are typically not the focus of these safety programs, but this gives you an idea of what we experience in Flagstaff on an annual basis and the kind of the trend. We also this is also coming out of the annual crash report, so this gives you an idea of the percentage of vulnerable, these are fatalities over a 5-year period, and this is, vulnerable road users represent about 43%, so bikes are at 8%, pedestrians are 35%, and then the two middle categories are vehicles. So 2 or more vehicles are vehicles colliding with each other. Of course, single vehicles are typically run off the road, hit a tree, hit a light pole or something like that. So that's kind of what we know. Here's a couple of options that we've looked at as far as moving forward with the questions in that FAIR item. So the FAIR item specifically listed Vision Zero approach, but that's just one of the many branded, if you will, safety initiatives that are out there. So here's 3: Road to Zero, Vision Zero, and Towards Zero Deaths, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on each of them. But Road to Zero is basically a 2018 report, and it has a bunch of strategies, and you pick strategies and you develop your safety plan for your community based on those strategies that they've established. Towards Zero Deaths is very similar. It's a 2014 report, and it's kind of the same idea. Vision Zero requires you to create an action plan with a number of things, and I'll highlight that when we get to that slide. So that's the 3 that we have kind of taken a look at. First one, again, Road to Zero. 3 main initiatives: double down on what works, advance life-saving technologies in the vehicles and infrastructure, and prioritize safety by adopting a safe systems approach. They have kind of a neat definition of safe systems approach, which I wrote down because I wasn't going to remember everything. So their first thing is safer people. They want educated and responsible behavior of the people, so that's pedestrians and drivers and cyclists. Safer roads, which is about roadway design and mitigating human mistakes. So we hear about that a lot. When drivers make mistakes, we should have a forgiving environment. Safer vehicles, which is just improved vehicle systems. Safer speeds, so you're mitigating speeds or you're managing speeds appropriate to the context of the road. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then post-crash care. So it's a fairly comprehensive approach. Obviously involves a lot more than just the engineering division or the traffic engineer. So that's the Road to Zero. And again, it's a coalition. It's free to join. And they also look at self-driving cars and different things. So they're very comprehensive. You wouldn't have to remember it's a report with all of these comprehensive things. You wouldn't actually pick everything. You would just pick the things that would make sense for the problems you're having or your community goals. Here's what the branding looks like. Again, it's a coalition, nonprofit, and it's managed by the National Safety Council. So that's one option. Here's the Vision Zero network, which seems to be fairly popular. One thing that's unique about the Vision Zero network, at least opposed to the other 2 that we found, is it actually requires an action plan. So you need to go through a fairly comprehensive planning process to create your action plan. And here's just a couple of the things that we've seen in sample action plans. You have to have a plan to manage speeds, again, appropriate for the facility types that you're looking at. There's multimodal planning, public outreach, and at the bottom of the slide, there's the Vision Zero minimum standards. So you need to engage many departments: public health, transportation, police department. There may be others as well, perhaps public works. The Vision Zero action plan has to have clear objectives and a schedule to achieve those objectives. You need to have someone like the mayor publicly committed, so that may be a resolution probably, and a clear goal. This is the whole point, a clear goal of eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries. So to zero is the Vision Zero. Again, it's a nonprofit collaborative campaign. Keep going, and I have an example of what one community has done. Maybe gives you a little bit of an idea, or actually 2 communities. So Towards Zero Deaths, this is the 3rd topic area. This one is a national strategy recognized by AASHTO, and you can see kind of their 6 key emphasis areas, very similar to the Road to Zero approach. Comprehensive and includes vehicles, infrastructure, drivers, vulnerable users, emergency services. It's actually very similar. Here's an example. We love to look, and you'll find that we love to look at Boulder and Portland. They're not necessarily our peers. Boulder maybe is closer to a peer to Flagstaff than Portland is, but they both tend to be high performing in just transportation in general. They do lots of good things that we'd like to emulate. So we looked at the city of Boulder here, and in 2014 they adopted Vision Zero goals. So they weren't quite a Vision Zero city yet, but they adopted Vision Zero goals. And here's a couple of the goals that we highlighted. They wanted to proactively apply for HSIP funding. They wanted to monitor crashes across the city to identify improvement areas, which kind of is what we've started to do with our annual crash report. And then they have this stated goal of eliminating all traffic fatalities. So that was back in 2014. 5 years later, they created their action plan. So that was in 2019. And that's when they became a Vision Zero city. So they probably did the resolution by the mayor and the council. And here's a couple of strategies that we picked up out of their plan that we thought were just would be interesting. So they expanded their red light camera program. So they do a lot of red light camera running there. We've talked about that here. It's been a long time. Maybe nobody on council has been part of those discussions, but we did talk about red light cameras many years ago. Improved pedestrian crossings. This can be a number of different things, and then leading pedestrian intervals. So those were a couple of their action plan strategies. There was actually quite a number in their plan, but those are a couple we highlighted. And keep going with what City of Boulder has been doing. We called and talked to them a bit and sent some emails, and they said about $500,000 annually is devoted to their Vision Zero projects. So this could be going out to a signal, that leading pedestrian interval, for an example, could be going out to a signal and retrofitting an existing signal. Could be a number of things, but they spent about $500,000, and this is the one that really threw us off. They're a bigger city than us. I think maybe 40% more population than Flagstaff, roughly. But again, really advanced in this area. These numbers of people kind of blew us away. I mean, transportation planning, 10 FTEs, you know Martin, that's the transportation planning group at this point. We do have a vacant position, but we're at like 2 compared to their 10. There are some reasons why they're able to do so many cool things and have a great website. You can see the rest of these. There is quite a disparity between what they're doing and what we're doing, both in people and projects. So that was pretty interesting. City of Phoenix, a little closer to home, released their safety analysis and strategies report in 2020. So they've been very active recently as part of their key corridors master plan. You can see they identify crash statistics and trends, which is something we're doing, and then outline strategies to increase safety on those specific corridors and streets. So that plan took, Bell Road and looked at all the crashes down Bell Road and then came up with strategies for individual intersections and the corridor itself. So a very, very detailed plan as part of this corridors master plan. And then you can see here they approved Vision Zero goals at the beginning of this calendar year, and they're hoping to get their action plan done by the end of the year, and then they will apply or call themselves. I'm not quite sure if you apply or you just call yourself a Vision Zero city, but that's their goal, is to get to Vision Zero sometime in the next couple of months or early next calendar year. So that's kind of those are kind of the 3 types of safety initiatives, or 3 examples of safety initiatives, and a little bit of an overview of what we have been doing. And the question with the FAIR item, the question tonight is, did you see enough information that you're interested in us spending some more time on this item to figure out what a reasonable timeline would be to create a safety action plan? It's certainly going to take staffing and resources, consultants. I don't quite know how these other cities have put these together, but I suspect it's a consultant effort and there's some staffing support. And things like Vision Zero are kind of forever. It's a program. You're creating a new safety program. They need to be supported continuously. So potential funding sources is something we would need to look at. There could be a grant out there. There likely is grants to get the program started, but I don't know that they would they would keep themselves going with a grant program. So I wanted to pause here on the safety topic because we do have a lot. So I thought as Nicole mentioned, we'd stop at each of these and see where you're at if you have questions or want to have some discussion.
I don't think Shimoni wants to talk about this at all.
Moving on.
I don't think Shimoni wants to talk, so we'll go to the rest of council if you'd like to mention. No, go ahead.
Please. No, thank you. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Nicole and Jenny and Martin, and Martin's 9 other employees that work with him, right? Martin, we need to build your team. Oh my gosh, 10 full-time employees at Boulder, and you're a team of 1, and you're not kicking and screaming every day for support? We'll get there, right? But Jeff, in all seriousness, thank you for the presentation thus far. I know we have a lot more to talk about. I love this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to explore the other options with safety. I think Vision Zero Council is our best approach. It's the most serious approach of the 3 options from what I can tell. And it's definitely what I've seen other communities doing. And they're very proud of it. You know, they really lead with the Vision Zero kind of like on their arm badge, quite frankly. They have they're very proud of that being a Vision Zero community, but it is a big commitment from the city. Like, as you can tell, this is gonna require budget. It's gonna probably require Martin to have more team members. And it's also obviously in line with our climate neutrality plan. So I think it's really helping us get to our climate goals while also embarking on a new path that we're really gonna be proud of as a community. So I would advise or hope to recommend that we would consider going down the path of Vision Zero and looking into some of those costs to be discussed maybe at this upcoming budget cycle and begin that journey as a community. I'm beyond excited and I'm curious to hear what my colleagues think. Thank you. Mary, I'm so sorry. One last quick question for Jeff. Jeff, with federal grant funding support, you know, I'm learning recently that you need to be a Vision Zero community to receive some of the grant funding around safety. Do you know if that grant funding is also available if you have those other 2 zero safety, what's the word I'm looking for? Certifications, self-proclaimed.
Thank you for the question. And you had mentioned that, I think, at the retreat. I haven't been able to uncover any information that says you need to be a Vision Zero city to apply for grants or to be eligible for grants. I have found information like the Safe Streets for All and those that you can use grant money to work towards being a Vision Zero city. But I haven't found that information. If you have links or somebody send it, I'd be curious.
I will.
But I did look around and we didn't find anything that was specific to Vision
Okay,
Zero.
and I'm looking at Miles with Metroplan, who's here. Thank you for being here. I had a recent talk with Dave Wessel, and he did confirm that my comment was accurate from his perspective.
Okay.
But we will look further into it and find out. But I think that also plays into this decision council. I think federally they do recognize Vision Zero with a higher level of respect and focus than the other 2 options. But I may be wrong about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. Councilmember Sauce.
If, may I offer a comment, Mr. Mayor, just based on my kind of just institutional knowledge on the IIGA and many meetings I've attended between council and Metroplan and RTAC, you know, there are 4 kind of interwoven principles of the IIGA or BIL or the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. It's number 1 is safety, and then number 2 is modernization, number 3 is climate, and number 3 is equity. But when it comes to, I remember having this discussion with Metroplan board way back when we were trying to sort through all the grant opportunities, and the safety, which is the Safe Streets for All grant program, and I believe Metroplan has submitted a grant for it. we had discussed about having, one of the criteria is about having an updated regional transportation safety plan. And also, I mean, and a resiliency plan may also be helpful on other grants. But it has been discussed, and when it comes to safety, the Safe Streets and Roads for All grants will fund the development of the safety action plans and projects that promote safety, reduce traffic fatalities, and support Vision Zero initiatives. In fact, the law actually spell out Vision Zero initiatives. So, yeah. So my question is, I am interested in putting together a comprehensive transportation safety action plan, but adding a regional perspective. Because if you're comparing our city to Boulder and Portland and even was it Phoenix? It was mentioned. Because keep in mind that Flagstaff is where two interstate highways, major highways converge. We have I-17 and I-40. So have a kind of more broader regional perspective when it comes to the regional safety, transportation safety plan. And I recall at the meeting of the Metro Plan, NACOG was leading that effort for the regional safety master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Salas. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in pursuing this. And, you know, just as you were talking, I was taking a moment to look through Boulder's website on their Vision Zero and seeing, you know, the grants and programs and plans that they've put into place. It's very extensive, and they list at the end of their Vision Zero action plan all of the partnerships that were involved in it. And so it's clearly, it takes a lot of partnership, not only within the city, but I think what's really exciting to me is their development of a Vision Zero community partnership that included, and it just lists out community cycles, cyclists for community, shared paths, Boulder walks, all of these different kind of community focused groups that I think something like this advances so many of the things that we're looking at as a community, and very much inspires that level of community engagement, neighborhood engagement, just engagement of people who are part of all of this in the education that it brings to the community. So very much interested in this.
Thank you, Councilmember House. Councilmember Aslan.
Hey, I'm very interested in this, and I just want to give a shout out to Councilmember Shimoni. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
And I am also very interested, and I've been waiting for this conversation, so it's exciting. Thank you.
Councilmember McCarthy.
I'm also interested, and I think this may require some more city funding. I don't think we're probably going to end up with 12 transportation engineers in the near future, but I think we could probably ramp that up some. And then what I've learned working with Metro Plan and with Mountain Line is there's a lot of money out there that we can bring in to push forward our goals. So, you know, when I think of several people getting killed out on our streets and people getting injured, if there's any way we can reduce that, I think we have a responsibility to do that. So I'm supportive.
Well, I'm absolutely supportive. You know, the two of the major functions of any city government is public safety and roads. So this befits into the very essence of what we should be doing as a city government, to protect people and make sure that our roads are safe and take care of those who are crossing or driving or whatever it may be, or So, yes, I'm full support, but always comes down to them ducats. So wherever we can find outside money to help with the designs, I know our team will be able to be on that, and we can start assessing this more thoroughly and what it's going to take employee-wise as we go into this budget cycle. Councilmember Shimoni.
Really quick follow-up. Two things. The Boulder community, since we're talking about Boulder, for one, they're at 108,000 people, so not so much bigger than us, but definitely a little bit bigger. They adopted their Vision Zero plan, or they started their Vision Zero journey in 2014, so 8 years ago. Are we going to be at 108 in 8 years from now? Possibly, right? So we're kind of right on track if we're kind of comparing ourselves to Boulder. And then secondly, I did hear some of my council members talk about Vision Zero specifically, but Jeff, do you need us to go around and do a thumbs up for Vision Zero specifically, or do you feel like you have direction to pursue that?
Yeah, I think we feel like we have consensus to explore Vision Zero as the primary.
And I just want to thank everybody on council for your support. I am beyond happy.
Excellent. Let's proceed.
Ready for number 2?
Number 2.
Which has 4 parts. So this is engineering design standards, and not actually all of these apply as engineering design standards, but we'll go with that heading because it's a nice way to put this through. So this is the outline. The request was to talk about level of service and level of service exception areas, vehicle miles traveled, and these kind of work themselves into the TIA process, or the Transportation Impact Analysis process. Roadway design speed, so this is the design speed of our roadways coming out of the engineering standards, and I'll go through all these in detail, of course. And then mode prioritization, which is actually housed currently in the regional plan, and I'll share a couple of slides for what that looks like today. Level of service, so it's a performance measure, and what's interesting or important here that you may or may not remember or know is that it's for roads, highways, intersections, bicycle facilities, and pedestrian facilities. So there are level of service standards for all of those different facility types, and we of course know A is good or the best, or maybe it's not good, I don't know, and F is the worst. Here's what the table looks like for signalized intersections, so that's one specific thing, and A through F, and our average control delay, so that's on average how many seconds of delay per vehicle. So less than 10 is A, and it's generally described as free flow conditions. And you'll remember from recent discussions that we're always shooting for level of service D or better, so D, C, B, or A in our signalized intersection and in all of the standards. If you've seen any of the Metro Plan presentations recently, Dave Wessel does a really good job talking about vehicle miles traveled, but here's my kind of cheap slide with just words. I don't have the cool graphics that he has, but vehicle miles traveled are simply how far a vehicle travels, right? It's one vehicle drives 5 miles, that's 5 vehicle miles traveled, and you sum those up across the region, across the day, or a year, and that's kind of the vehicle miles traveled VMT metric that we like to talk about, or that you hear about. This is maybe jumping ahead a little bit, but alternative mitigation strategies, so this is where vehicle miles traveled could come into play, and where California is working now with their TIA process. So California is typically trying to, when new development comes in, they're trying to reduce the vehicle miles traveled. So they know how many vehicle miles traveled a certain development would typically create, say the number's 100. They have zones where they say, we don't want 100, we want 80. We don't want to go as big as it would typically be. And so how would you mitigate from 100 to 80? And here's some of the things that you might do. You might require enhanced transit. You might require the development to charge for parking, expanded car share. There could be a number of different things, and we'll see some of those. Some of those fall into these kinds of strategies where they could be more infrastructure based, and some could fall into the transportation demand management, TDM strategies. So here's the graphic that you've seen before. We showed this back in January. I think Seth presented this slide. These are a number of different techniques or strategies to help reduce VMT when you're well, just to reduce VMT. So you can see the 4 on the left are kind of all land use type things. Transit-oriented developments are typically really dense developments with super high levels of transit built into them. Think like a subway running through a building, though it could be done with buses, but typically it's real high-level transit. Density of design, we've heard lots about that. Price parking, street connectivity, so those are the really big ticket or the big strategies that can produce the largest reductions in VMT, these are the maximum levels. And you can see way over on the far right, one of our favorites, scooter share, is only at 0.1%. Sorry, Jenny, I had to point that one out. It's one of our favorites. We will make it happen someday. In any case, there's a whole spectrum of things that can help reduce VMT, scooters being one of them. This is a really simplified graphic that we found as we were putting this presentation together to kind of describe this VMT mitigation, or if you're rolling VMT into your mitigation strategy. So the top one is your typical approach. So you have the road on the left that's working, it's free flow conditions, it looks like. You build something and you don't have any mitigation for the road, you can see the road gets very full. Typically, here, the typical is you'd add some lanes. And of course, it could be lots of different things, but this is really simplified. We're gonna add some lanes, and then out in the future, those lanes will fill up eventually. There'll be more development occur, there'll be more cars in the community, and the road will fill up again. So in the VMT strategy, you have the road that's empty, you have the new development that occurs, you don't provide it, there's no mitigation initially, and then your mitigation in this case is you're adding buses to the network. So the idea is you wouldn't expand the road, you just add a lot of buses to pick up all of those people trips that need to occur. Of course, in a well-rounded program, you'd do lots of things. You wouldn't just do the buses, but this is the simplified example. And then in future conditions, you still wouldn't widen the road, you just add more buses. So that is one of the VMT type strategies that's a potential here, or something that we're asking if you're interested in exploring for Flagstaff. Often associated with the VMT, because you can see the road got really full, is you need to have level of service exception areas. You don't have to have these two combined, but often I think they are getting combined. So this is an example from Scottsdale. So they created this as part of their transportation action plan in 2022, so it's hot off the press. And basically, most all of the city is level service D, like we are here. But then in certain areas, and typically it's urban core, where, like, think Aspen Avenue. We don't want to add right turn lanes on Aspen Avenue. It's this downtown environment. We don't have any room for it. We don't want to do it for character reasons. There could be a bunch of reasons, and some of them are listed here. So you go through a modeling process and you figure out what, there are impacts to allowing level of service to get worse. You're probably going to have, well, you will have more congestion. Associated with congestion is often crashes, though they're not usually severe. There are often more crashes. And you may have some diversion, if you allow certain streets to get to poor level of service. If there are adjacent streets, they're likely to pick up traffic. So you have to be really careful with this. It's not something that you want to go, yeah, let's make that one and that one. You would really need to go through a fairly extensive modeling process to understand the trade-offs. But Scottsdale has done that in a few areas. So they designated activity cores and urban roadways. So they have a map with these certain areas. So interesting, someone in Arizona has done this. Typically, this has been associated in the past with really large cities, Boston, New York kind of places, downtown, where you're providing lots of sidewalks, could be providing biking opportunities, but the subway system and things like that provides that alternative mode that's very viable. Typically, that's the trade-off that you're making, or the trade-offs that you want to be available if you're going to do level of service exception zones. So that's kind of VMT and LOS. I'll keep going, and we'll have a pause, but not yet, if that's okay. So design standards was another one of the engineering standard questions that we were asked to take a look at. So there's kind of 4 ways to think about speed, and one, operating speed is what the vehicles are doing on the street. Design speed is what you have designed the facility to handle, and posted speed is what you put up for the sign. And in many cases in urban or suburban areas, we call all of those target speeds. So we want all of them to be the same. historically for rural highways, for example, like Interstate 17 may have a design speed of like 85 or 90, and they posted at 80. Usually it's 10. So they probably built it at 80 or 85, and now it's posted at 75, and that was kind of a factor of safety, and that's how rural highway design works. Urban and suburban, typically you're trying to align all of these. So you want your operating speed to match your design speed to match your posted speed limit. Of course, posted speed limit has, we've talked about that a little bit, but has a lot to do with what people are actually doing. That's how the engineering analysis is done per state laws. So that's speeds and kind of how they work together. Design of speeds is super complicated. There is a bunch of factors, and we listed many here, but this is not an exhaustive list. But some of the big ones we try to highlight first, which is how curvy is the road and how tight are those curves. So that's horizontal curves. Vertical curves are your hills, your crests, and your sags. Those control speeds really well. Road function and purpose has a big part because that's kind of a broad category, but local streets, people don't expect local streets to be posted at 65, even if they are long and straight. Context and function has a lot to do with the speeds that we'll see out on those streets. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you can see driveway density, where the buildings are adjacent. Lane widths do make a difference, not much. Pavement conditions, driveway densities, just on and on. Here's a little bit of information about speed limit signs, because this is a popular question or a popular request. So the speed chosen by, I would say, reasonable drivers on roadways is determined by multiple factors. Again, horizontal and vertical curves. The number on the sign tend to have little to no effect on speed. So there's lots of people have tried posting different speeds, and usually you may see 1 mile per hour difference, which is generally imperceptible. You can measure it, but it's fairly imperceptible. Again, we go to Boulder. Boulder decided they would change all of their local streets to 20 miles per hour. They went back out and measured them, and there was no change at all across the city. A little surprising, but not really. I mean, that's what we've been taught. Engineers have been taught for a long time, and it played out again. So here's how this all comes together in the engineering standards. This particular table, and I've abbreviated it so that it's not too much, but this is the urban table. You can see that on the top. And then functional classifications, you can see on the left is the major arterials. Those are typically the ADOT routes, all the way down to residential local streets on the far right. So we have these are all urban again, all the different classifications of road, and you can see in our engineering standards, there's a predetermined speed that we'll design each of these facilities to. And once you pick that speed, then there's a number of criteria that fall below that. So one of the questions is that we're asking tonight, and we'll ask it later, but here's a kind of a preview, is do we want to adjust this table? Do we think that minor arterials shouldn't be designed for 40? Because if they're designed for 40, they're likely to operate at 40, and so on. So that's a preview of what we're talking about for speeds. Now transitioning to mode prioritization, this is a table out of the regional plan. So this is not in the engineering standards, but there's a series of tables. This is the urban one, and I'll just jump to this one. This is the suburban and rural table. So the top is the suburban, the lower is the rural. And you can see we have all the different things we're trying to accomplish in the roadway, or different, I wouldn't say modes of travel because we have parking in there as well, but auto, transit, bike, ped, and parking. And then it's by the area types, which are activity centers, which are these urban parts of the suburban. So we have suburban activity centers. You've all heard this before, I think, in different contexts, but we break them out, activity center in general, and then you can see this is the use type and level of service. And so basically what we wrote on the far right is kind of this story. The tables are used to determine which features to enhance when right-of-way is scarce. So we have our typical cross-sections for all of these different scenarios, but when we get in a pinch and we can't fit all of the different things, we're supposed to go look at this table to figure out kind of how we prioritize the limited space that's available. These also help us in developing our roadway cross-sections. So in urban activity centers, for example, we have really wide sidewalks. We have 10-foot sidewalks, and we don't have the planting parking strip. We have a furnishing strip because it's an urban area and there's typically on-street parking. So that's how an urban street is laid out, and that's kind of based on this. When you get to suburban and rural, maybe the sidewalk goes to 6 feet, or maybe it even goes away in the rural context. This is how mode prioritization is built into our regional plan and engineering standards today. Here's a different way to look at it, and again, we'll go to Portland with this kind of upside down triangle. City will implement a hierarchy of modes for people movement, making transportation system decisions according to the following prioritization. So this is similar to the F.A.I.R item, walking, cycling, transit, shared vehicles, and then private automobiles. So this is their general hierarchy, and then the next page explains how they implement that. And this is really important to know how they implement that, because I'll just go through each of these because I think they're pretty important. So the needs and safety of each group of users are considered, and changes that we make to existing conditions can't make things worse for the most vulnerable users higher on the list. So you can't make changes that make it worse for other people higher on the list. Really important second one, all users' needs are balanced with the intent of optimizing the right-of-way for multiple modes in the same street, so we're not leaving anybody behind, no matter where they're at on the triangle. When necessary to ensure safety, we're going to accommodate some users on parallel streets. It's a lot easier to do in Portland with a grid than it is in Flagstaff. We don't have that many parallel streets. We're always trying to cram everything on the same street, but that is a really nice, handy tool to have. And this one's good too. Land use and system plans, network functionality for all modes, other street functions, and complete street policies are maintained so that triangle doesn't mess up your broader planning objectives or the continuity of arterial streets, for example, or different things like that. And then the last one, policy-based rationale is provided if modes lower in the ordered list are prioritized. So the triangle isn't absolute. There's going to be reasons or times when things need to be shuffled around. So in a nutshell, how Portland is doing their prioritization. I have this slide. This is the roadway classification map. Just to remind you, we have a hierarchy in Flagstaff of different roads. Green is the interstate system. Blue are the I'll go to red first. Red are the major arterials, which are essentially the 8-out routes you can see working their way through the city. The arterials, and then the city typically has the blue, which are the minor arterial routes, and interstates, major arterials, and minor arterials, of course, are for typically moving people long distances, moving them through the region, across the region, sometimes not even stopping in the region. So the priority on those roads, or the highest function typically, though it gets confused when you get into urban cores, but typically for those facilities is moving vehicles, moving people longer distances, less driveways, less interaction, higher speeds. That's what the public expects. That's how we build those facilities. The other end of the spectrum, we're moving down the list. Magenta is major collectors and the yellow is the minor collectors. Local streets are not shown on this map. We don't map those, but of course local streets are the opposite of the arterials. We want low speeds, low volumes, lots and lots of driveways, just unfettered access. So it's kind of the spectrum of the hierarchy of roads. So that's what our map looks like. And so speeds follow those hierarchies for the most part, with some exceptions. Other cities do it the same way. We didn't grab the roadway classification map, but we did grab the speed limit map, which is pretty interesting. And it's broken. This is both. You can see it's both the hierarchy of roads and the speed limits. So City of Boulder looks like they do their principal arterials 35, 40, and 45. We have 2 roads that are moderately rural that have 45, but all of ours would be 35 or 40 typically. Minor arterials 25 to 35, which would be the same banding that we use. Collectors also 25 to 30 would be the same banding that we use. Local streets are not shown here, but as we mentioned before, Boulder went with this 20 mile per hour. I don't know if it's an experiment or not, or if they're going to stick with it. But you can see kind of similar to what we do. Portland's is very busy, and here's that amazing grid that can do all sorts of things for you. But you can see they have a similar hierarchy with major streets, F.45, they use kind of a different terminology, district collector, neighborhood collectors, 25 to 35, and their access streets and local service streets. So again, even these fairly urban gridded cities still have a fairly robust hierarchy of different street types and different roadway speeds associated with them. So similar to what we do. Whew. That was number 2. Again, has about 4 parts. I feel like I'm trying to go kind of fast because there's still another part to go. So here we are. We have a number of questions with this one, and I'm happy to back up some slides if you'd like some more information. But the first question is, does the City Council want us to further investigate VMT as a performance measure for future transportation impact analyses? So one of the first steps before you can even get to this point is you need to have a regional model that can do VMT. We didn't have that, but MetroPlan is creating that now through their RTP updates. So we have at least the first part of the tool to be able to implement this, though this is a big deal. California had I forget how they call their state laws, but they passed a state law to add VMT, to require VMT as part of their environmental review for the TIA process. And so all cities are required to do VMT. And I think they're on year 7 or so of implementing. It's taken them that long to figure out how to do this. And most cities do their traditional TIA process with level of service and add on VMT to the TIA process. So, you know, the TIA process is long and slow and complicated. This does add another step. So just be aware. It has benefits, but it definitely adds another step. Second question is, are we interested in doing the modeling and doing the analysis to see if some level of service exception zones would be of interest to the City Council? So this would be likely, I don't have, it's not predetermined, we haven't done any of the work, but likely some area around the downtown core would be my expectation, where we say level of service D is not required. We would allow development to go to level of service E, or we would build to E. E does have a cap. F doesn't have the cap, right? F just goes on forever. So I think most cities, I don't know, I think most are going to E. Standard design speeds for future roadway planning, that's another question. Do we want to look at all of those tables? I showed you the urban table. There's also a suburban table and a rural table. Do we want to look at those and reduce some speeds or raise speeds? But I assume it's reduce speeds is the question. And the fourth item is the regional plan. There's potential to update those tables through plan amendment process, or what I would recommend is that we work on that through the regional plan update that's getting started, as opposed to tackling that one as a plan amendment. 4 easy questions.
All right, who wants to jump in? Other than Shimoni. Just kidding. I mean, I'll jump in if I want to, but
Well,
Councilman McCarthy.
I think it's a good goal to try to reduce vehicles miles traveled. But I also realize that it's a very difficult thing to accomplish. I think, land use, I've said this before, I think land use plans have more impact on VMT than anything else. But the very nature of land use plans is it evolves over many, many years, over decades. So I think it's worthwhile to have it as a goal, but I don't see that we're going to make, major changes in that right off the bat, And as far as the level of service exceptions, yeah, I think in certain areas like downtown that might make sense. And then design standards for future roadways. When I read this packet, the most interesting thing to me was when Boulder changed their speed limit to 20 miles an hour from 25, and it didn't make any difference. So I guess on number 3, are you talking about, well, maybe we should make roads narrower, or put more curves in them on purpose, or what do you think might come out of number 3 if we decided to do that?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so number 3 is the design speed, so it wasn't impacting existing streets. It was to change our design table for when we build new roads.
Like John Wesley Powell, for instance.
Like John Wesley Powell, so I think based on the table, it would be, that arterial. So the question would be, would 35 be more appropriate for an arterial? In that
Well, it might be
context?
more appropriate, but I guess the question is, how would you accomplish that? It's not going to be done with signs. It has to be done with width of the road, or, the nature of that road is kind of curvy anyway. It's not like a straight through. So I think it might be an interesting goal, but again, I don't think it's like, boom, you're going to flip a switch and then it's done. It's a gradual thing. It's something to keep in mind, but I take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. I think the city on certain Fridays is down at level of service F now. I recently was up by the north end of Humphreys, and there were some high school students walking down the sidewalk. And when I got to Aspen, they were right next to my car. So the point is, on Milton, well, actually that's Humphreys, but sometimes on Milton and Humphreys, you could literally walk faster than you can drive. Well, some people might accept that, but there's a lot of people in the general public that just makes them angry. It's like, what in the hell are we going to do about this? Something needs to be done. So I think we have to take into account what the public's expectations are on some of these things also. How's that for a non-definitive answer?
Councilmember Shimoni, then Councilmember Salas.
I can't help it, I had to jump in. Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy, for those comments. With VMT, these conversations have been, almost 4 years in the making for me, so I'm so grateful we're finally having them at the council level. But for 4 years, I remember talking to leadership at the city saying, are we moving people or are we moving cars? And so with VMT, it really kind of flips the script from levels of service where you're really focused on cars and says, okay, we're moving people. How do we best move people? And that's the holistic approach that I think we as a city need to take. And to your comments about the congestion, I think VMT gives us more tools to address that congestion than just building more lanes. Because I think VMT in the end might take longer in the TIA process, Jeff, right? But in the end, it'll also save the city a lot of money. Because instead of just building more roads that we have to maintain and just more concrete, we're thinking creatively outside the box. And that's ultimately going to result in a smaller footprint of concrete, which is going to be better for the budget, right? So we have to keep that in mind too. So that's where I'm at on VMT, full support. I think it benefits our community tremendously. On levels of service, I think it's important that we not just focus in on downtown, but really, I'm thinking South Side, I'm thinking about Butler, I'm thinking about where people are crossing the road. One slide that wasn't in this presentation, maybe it's yet to come, but I'll just verbalize it. What I was hoping was going to be presented was a pedestrian intersecting with a car moving 40 miles an hour, which is quite a few of our roadways, has an 85% chance of fatality. So there's a lot of collisions when you look at the crash map along corridors where cars are moving 40 miles an hour. 85% chance of fatality. So thinking about the Vision Zero conversation we just had, I think that in adjusting our chart and our speed allocations will result in a higher chance of life, of survival, if and when a crash occurs. And so I'm just thinking, if you look at that map, Jeff, that you put up with the city of Flagstaff, all those areas of which kind of cross where pedestrians are, that's where I want us to have some flexibility. And if you recall back with the bicycle party group's petition that they brought forward to us a couple years ago, or a year ago at this point, they asked for us to address the speed limit on Butler. And I don't think we're really allowed to because of this chart to a certain degree. So all I'm asking is that we have more flexibility with our speeds and have more of a range rather than, okay, at if it's this type of road classification, it's 40. If it's this type, it's 35. But maybe give us a little bit more flexibility as council to say, hey, maybe that road should be 30 versus 35 or 40. Because it does cross by where neighborhoods are. And we know that at 30 miles an hour, there's almost a 50% chance of fatality versus the 85. So that's where my mind's at when we have that part of the conversation. And with Boulder's example, Councilmember McCarthy, that's a great point, but it's only year one after they change the signs. So, think about the kids who are growing up, next generation, 20 years later, they're heading in the right direction and they're trying. And maybe they didn't solve it overnight, but they can keep taking those steps. And I think that those steps are valid, right? In terms of mode prioritization in our regional plan tables, I'd like to see the pyramid that Jeff showed that the city of Portland has. If we were to adopt that, Flagstaff City Council, if we were to adopt that chart, how would that overlay on the chart that we have in the regional plan? And the Vision Zero, how does that overlay with that chart? And so I know that there's talk about doing that as part of the next regional plan update, but I think that's the question at hand, and those are the changes I'm hoping that we can make as a city, is that overlay of priorities on that chart. As Jeff said, we have limited roadways, and we try to cram everything together, and it's a matter of trade-offs and who it is that we're prioritizing. Are we prioritizing a center turn lane, or a median, or an additional buffered bike lane, And those decisions are made based off of the prioritizations in that regional plan chart. So that's a change I'm hoping we can give direction on tonight, is to better prioritize those needs that Portland has gone ahead and done. And I really appreciate that slide about how Portland addresses this. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that's all the topics on this section. Thank you.
Councilmember Shimoni. Councilmember Salas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Baumann, for this presentation. Let me start by saying I believe that transportation safety and efficiency are very intrinsic to a thriving community and a resilient economy. And that's the reason why I'm actively involved with Metro Plan, and even with that role in the statewide Rural Transportation Advocacy Council. Before we delve into further discussing these items, let me just share some facts. In the 2021 Flagstaff Community Survey, transportation was identified as top priority to improve quality of life, and automobile transportation as highest priority, with 69% of the respondents. 61% of Flagstaff workforce, drive to work. Flagstaff attracts 6 million visitors a year. We have 183,000 peoples from our tribal neighbors who live on the reservations, drive to Flagstaff for work, for goods and services. With respect to the VMT, as Mr. Baumann has mentioned, Metro Plan is actually updating the regional transportation plan to set the regional model for VMT. And I think that modeling is important, and not for the city not to do its own VMT. It's also important to note that we have voter-approved Lone Tree Overpass and J.W. Powell Extension. And I believe there's some presentations by the Metro Plan soon, and I've had an opportunity to to see the presentation, the onward plan of the Metro Plan Stride Forward increases vehicles mile traveled by 460,000 miles a day by 2030. Firmly believe that transportation strategies must encompass community design to expand urbanized areas, increase density, and connect more streets, which Councilmember McCarthy has mentioned. It has something to do with land use. And this has something to do with a broader look of our regional plan, which is also currently being updated. So with that in mind, I believe all of these points need to be interspersed with current public process through the Metro Plan Stride Forward planning and our regional planning, transportation planning. Also keep in mind, while we identify these models, Boulder, Portland, Phoenix, we also have to recognize that the major arterials in our city are not even managed by the city. They are managed by the state. ADOT roads, Milton, Fort Valley, Highway 180, East and West Route 66, and even Humphreys, and even Schweitzer Canyon. So, of course, ADOT has their level of standards and also engineering standards, which are national recognized standards. So keep that in mind. And I have to note that we could not, we can reduce the speed limits and stuff, but we could not legislate or control distracted driving or driving under the influence, or in my case, many times, I have seen pedestrian and bicyclists who are not even looking, crossing the street, who don't even have flashers at night. Just kind of like my personal note here. So with your question, Mr. Bowman, can you please return to the yes, I'm very much interested into the engineering design startup, but they all have to be interspersed with Metro Plan Stride Forward as it's doing the VMT modeling. And I believe also with the Metro Plan Stride Forward, it even has the travel demand strategies that promote work from home, ride sharing, less driving, and of course, double the transit, quadruple the bike and pedestrian facilities. Wait, what happened? Okay, so, mic, is that my mic? It's on mute, yes, yeah, so, and then of course, all of this good discussion need to be included in the regional plan update. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McCarthy.
Yeah, just to come back to design speeds a little bit. A couple points. One is I don't think we need to go across town at 40, 50 miles an hour. 35 miles an hour is great. The other thing is that, if the speed limit were 35, people would go 40. Well, 40, I remember from a project I did in college, is about the optimum speed as far as moving the most vehicles down the street. Because if you're going 60, you're farther apart for safety reasons. And if you're going 20, you're not moving. So 40 is like an optimum speed to move the most cars down the street per unit time. So, a speed limit of like 35 is probably a better goal for our arterial streets than, say, 45, in my opinion.
Thank you, Councilmember McCarthy. All right, I'll weigh in here. Yes to the VMT as a performance measure. I think this would just be in general enlightening for us when we are seeing new developments. I'm thinking of one in particular on how that's going to increase our VMT for the entire city. Then on the LOS exceptions, yes, and I think that would be a good endeavor as we update the regional plan. And in terms of the speeds, this does say specifically standard design speeds rather than the stated speeds, because I did homework too on this, not just with Boulder, but this is nationally. People aren't abiding by signs unless they're flashing with radar. Radar speed signs do work and decreases by, what was it, like 10-20% speeds. But that being said, in terms of the standard design speeds, I would be willing to do more variable. Not we're absolutely going to do 40. It can be a range, 35 to 40 even, or whatever it may be. And I think that gives us some flexibility, especially when we're thinking of J.W. Powell, because there's going to be additional developments there. And we're going to want people to be slowing down in areas that may be a higher density residential compared to an R1 for going speeds or where pedestrians might be actually crossing the street, as opposed to a couple miles where there may not be anyone really crossing the street. So I'm saying I'm good with the variable speeds on that for the design standards, and yes, putting this into the regional plan would be appropriate. And thank you, Councilmember Salas, for bringing up what Metro Plan is doing, as we certainly need to align with our partners, as we know we don't control all them streets. So, all right, there's my 2 cents. Next, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So I am definitely a yes on 1 through 3. And, just a thought, I remember doing a meeting with some of the staff in Portland, and we did talk a lot about the inverted pyramid. And I think that's just a mind shift, even if we can't do all of that all of the time here in Flagstaff. It really changed my idea of projects, and I just would recommend everyone take another look at that and use it for the future.
You, Councilmember Aslan.
I'll be brief. I'm a yes for 1 through 3. And I know that Miles and David are watching this, or they will watch it. And I just have a lot of faith in Metro Plan's ability to bike and chew gum at the same time here. A lot of these transitions are going to be seamless, and it's because they're paying attention to what we're doing, and we bring this mandate to them by being on their board as well. So looking forward to the synergy, which is a word that came up a lot at our previous Metro Plan meeting, and just good communication between the city and Metro Plan on this, and ADOT. And thank you, Councilmember Salas, for all the attention to detail that you bring to that, and for the advocacy that you take to the state capitol all the time. And again, Councilmember Shimoni, I hope you're feeling good tonight. This is a big part of your legacy.
Councilmember Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm in agreement on 1 through 3. I'm not going to reiterate what Councilmember Aslan just said, but I do think, I don't know if you were seeking direction on the potential regional plan changes between whether we thought it should be amendments now or incorporation into the regional plan update. Was that the question there?
The question was, were you interested in this topic? And then there's a couple of options on how to pursue that. Excuse me.
Okay. So for me, I think I'm interested in seeing it as part of incorporation into the regional plan update rather than working through amendments now, especially considering the amendments that were just made. But I think by incorporating it into the regional plan update, that allows for the more collaborative process with Metro Plan and other stakeholders who are going to have some stake in some of these considerations.
Thank you. With that, I think we're good to proceed.
Nice job, Jeff.
I've been instructed to use wipes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. 3 cheers to Jeff for getting through that. I'm going to round us out with a discussion on ongoing work towards the big shift. And so this is the new slide in your packet, and we wanted to put it in here because it really speaks to the CCR City Council report that we wrote in March that really talked about transforming transformation. It talked about the big shift. And there's a lot here, and I don't expect you to read it all, but the main message is there's a lot happening, there's a lot that's in progress, and there is much work to be done. And so I'm going to talk about the things in green and darker blue here because those things are completed or in progress. And, oh, I see. Thank you, Stacy. So those things are completed or in progress, right? And so I'm going to get into those and we'll get into those details. And the broader message here is that there's much more work to come. As Nicole kind of alluded to before, the big shift is not, just we're done, one policy, right, or one program. It is turning a big, big shift. It will take really deep work on our systems and our processes, the deep work that you all were just discussing about and that Jeff brought to you tonight. And so, we really hope that this conversation moves us away from kind of project-based discussions to these policy changes, right? And at the end of the day, this is about how we think about transportation. It's about how we talk about transportation with our neighbors, right? I know, how we talk about traffic, right? How might we change those conversations in some ways, changing expectations, right? About what we expect from our transportation system. And so the message here is really, I'm going to talk about progress, and a lot of work is happening, but much more work is still needed. And that really is in this sort of phase 4 and beyond here. There's much more to come. What I am going to talk about right now, though, is the in-progress things. So I'm going to talk about a city code analysis project, an update on our partnership work with Metro Plan, and then a brief update on the Stride Forward Regional Transportation Plan. So the first highlight is, I'm really proud to say, an initiative council approved significant funding for in this fiscal year. The code analysis project will look at our city codes and analyze how they help achieve both housing goals and how we achieve the goals of the 10-year housing plan and the carbon neutrality plan. So funding was awarded to both the sustainability office and to our housing section for this project. We are really excited to be working on this project with our partners in housing as well as our planning staff led by Michelle McNulty as well as Jeff and his team in engineering. And we're bringing in folks from economic vitality, water services, IT, and more. We've worked this summer to build a scope of work for this project, and this will be we've begun pushing this scope into a formal RSOQ, working with our partners in procurement. So that is TBD for now, but it's going to be paired with another project on land analysis and land suitability. And so we're really excited to pair these two projects together to work across divisions to say, with our existing codes, with what we have today, what are barriers to achieving our broader community goals in housing, in sustainability, and beyond, right? And so this analysis will do a couple things. It's going to go through our development-related codes really line by line to see how codes might be changed to support housing, sustainability, and more. For climate specifically, we're looking at all 3 of our goals. So we're not just looking at reducing emissions, right, which is, energy efficiency, transportation, et cetera. We're also thinking about resilience, passive survivability in our buildings, for instance, as well as equity, which is obviously deeply tied to our housing goals. Housing, well, we're looking at really housing supply and affordability and how our current codes might affect that. And this is really going to result in two things. It's going to result in identification of codes that produce barriers, and then it's going to result in recommendations for those revisions. We're really excited for those because that will lead to a conversation about how we change our codes for the better. And then we'll actually test those codes on projects in Flagstaff to make sure that they really work. So this is a multi-year project, but we are starting. There's a lot of internal staff work going on. I get to be the face of it today, but it really is led by a ton of folks, particularly in community development. Another project that was mentioned in the Big Shift CCR City Council report was the Transforming Transformation Workshop. As I mentioned before, the Big Shift really involves how we think about transportation, right? It relates to the conversations y'all just had. And one of the most important things that we want to do is support Team Flagstaff in making this shift, but also all of our regional partners. And so in May, we got 30 transportation-related staff, so planning staff as well, from the city, from Metro Plan, Mountain Line, the county, ADOT, and NAU in the room. And we brought in national experts. We spent time reviewing national best practices and then really talking about, okay, how do we get this done in Flagstaff? This workshop was done through the mini grant that we've mentioned before that we received from Metro Plan, and this workshop was in deep partnership with Metro Plan. And what's really exciting is that we came back with real results. I don't expect anyone to read this, but I just wanted to show you, it was put together by our facilitators, who are the same folks working on the Stride Forward Regional Transportation Plan. And it just illustrates the wide range of conversation and how much we could take away from it. I think the biggest takeaways were the need for better alignment in our plans, right, and in taking action. And that goes back to sometimes the regional plan even, right, talks a lot about the same things that we're talking about tonight. It also, we really talked a lot about staying biased towards action and taking action and working together. Next, we've got some more progress to talk about, and what we like to say about the Big Shift is that it will take everyone. The nice thing about that is that we get to celebrate everyone. And so this is where we get to give a big congratulations to Team Flagstaff, to you all, to our capital team, most importantly maybe, for the Downtown Mile project. The Downtown Mile project is a part of the Big Shift, right? It prioritizes moving people across really big barriers, right? It's a really, really cool example of this city taking big steps to move people and prioritize their movement, right? It does a lot of other things too, right? And we're so excited about it, but I think it really kind of sets a new step forward because there's such clear alignment. The federal transportation priorities have a lot to do with walkability, right? With climate, with equity, et cetera, right? And so that clear alignment is just so exciting for us to see. So congratulations to that team and really all of Team Flagstaff. In terms of upcoming work on the Big Shift, as we've already talked about, the active transportation plan will come to council in November and represents the policy kind of support for so many Big Shift concepts. The next thing is we have two really exciting projects, and they really relate to everything you all just discussed. The city is partnering with Metro Plan on both of these, and these are the second and third portions of that mini grant that I mentioned. And so the first project is the work to integrate VMT into our transportation modeling and analysis. And so that will bring it into the Stride Forward RTP process. And this is just really important, and I'm kind of repeating a little bit what we've talked about, but right now we don't use VMT as a metric in our transportation decisions, right? But VMT is one of the most key metrics of the carbon neutrality plan. We know that, it's not just electric vehicles, right? We have to maintain and reduce our VMT. And so a lot of other cities have also started using VMT as a metric to look at less, what are the impacts to traffic, but more, if we have this development, right? And so what this project will do, it will say, when we have this development or when we have this infrastructure project, how does that impact VMT? How many more cars does that put on the road? And how many more miles does that lead to be driven? Some developments may have really high impacts, some may not, right? And how do we think about those two developments, differently, right? Because they are really different in terms of their impact. So we are so excited for Metro Plan support and partnership here. The next project is performance standards. Again, this is also part of the Metro Plan mini grant, and it will consider what standards we adopt to guide our decisions. It's kind of just the third leg of this stool of, we need the data, right? And when we're making decisions, what are the standards that are gonna help us know if we're getting it right? Right? That's a big question because we haven't done this work before necessarily in this context of VMT. And so, again, the consultants that are working on the regional transportation plan are working with this. So we're really excited about things being in lockstep. So these things are moving forward. They are, because they're tied to the RTP, we will be working on them in winter and spring of this year. And so we will have an update for you all around that time on how these things are moving forward. Finally, we are thrilled that the Stride Forward Regional Transportation Plan is moving forward. And I'd like to just pause and appreciate this plan is really considering how we will meet our transportation-related goals in the carbon neutrality plan. And it is so deeply exciting to us. So we are happy to be joined by Metro Plan CEO Miles Malbeck tonight, who can speak briefly to the status of this plan. Miles.
Thank you, Jenny. Mayor and council, my name is Jeff Milbeck. I go by Miles because it's short for vehicle miles traveled. And I do appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm the executive director of the organization, and I want to recognize the relationship that Metro Plan has with the city is very close. And it's not a matter of Metro Plan providing information and the city acts on it or vice versa. We really create this together. And from a policy perspective, and I just want to make sure it's clear, and I want to recognize Councilmember McCarthy for chairing the Metro Plan Board, Councilmember Salas for serving on the Metro Plan Board and the RTAC Board, and also Councilmember Aslan, who's on the board. You talked about a lot tonight, and the Stride Forward plan is Metro Plan's effort to look forward 25 years and create, and this is the mission of Metro Plan, to create the finest transportation system in the country. Of course, the question is, what is the finest transportation system in the country? It depends who you ask. And ultimately, the community together has to make some of those decisions, and they get reflected in our plans, and then hopefully they get reflected on the ground. There are two things in the Stride Forward plan. One is the onward plan, which is basically building out the projects as designed and what that would look like if we stay on this trajectory. And the other is the upward plan that would reach for maintaining vehicle miles traveled. It would try to keep those vehicle miles traveled down. So we're still fine-tuning that plan. We're doing a lot of public input, and we'll be bringing it to council after the first of the year. I'd like to say one other thing that's not on my talking points, but it occurs to me as I listen to the discussion tonight. And I think perhaps it amplifies something Jeff shared and that Councilmember Sweet pointed out. I think the most impactful thing that you can do is to adopt policies and then hold us responsible for delivering them. If the pyramid is inverted, if that's what the policy direction is, well, then we need to go figure out how to put those things in place. I also want to be clear, though, that I am agnostic on what you decide. I'm not here to say invert the pyramid. I'm here to say that we will work to design the kind of plan that this community wants. And it's a process, of course, to keep figuring that out. So thank you again for the partnership and for the opportunity to come up and introduce myself tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Salas.
Just for clarity and for the public information, Mr. Malice, could you just kind of scope out the coverage of Metro Plan in terms of the metropolitan planning boundaries?
Scope out the boundary of Metro Plan to describe to people? Thank you.
Like east, west, south, north.
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Salas. So our boundary is identical actually to the Mountain Line Transit System boundary, which is Greater Flagstaff. And we define that as south to south of Kachina Village and then Donny Park to Belmont. So we really are within the more urbanized area. We don't extend very much farther into the county.
Thank you,
you.
Miles.
This is the last slide. I believe that we have all the direction we've been seeking. Thank you so much. I know this was a lot of information, but as my new metaphor of all the ingredients in a really big recipe, and we appreciate the direction. As for next steps, we will be putting we will regroup internally to set some dates to get items on the working calendar. We will come back with the timelines, staffing needs, funding needs, potential resources, follow up on some of the great resources Councilmember Salas brought forward, and lots of work ahead. With that, is there any further discussion?
Councilmember Schmunny.
Quick question. Thank you, Nicole. And again, thank you, Council. But before we get to my concluding comments, I just had a quick question for you, Nicole. With the downtown mile, do you know if hiring staff with the funding that we were allocated or are being allocated to oversee like bike ped projects? I'm thinking about Martin here. Is that something that the downtown mile grant funding could provide? Is staff support?
I would love to defer to Martin or Jeff on that.
Stacy BK.
Or Stacy BK. Who's not here?
Yeah, I don't know the answer either. I know the grant application did not include that, but I don't know if that's an eligible expense after the fact. But
Okay.
It was not included in the original grant application.
Okay, I'm just trying to think creatively as to how to.
Yeah, I would be leaning toward a no, but others are closer to it than I am, but I'm pretty sure it's just capital. Just
Okay.
bricks and mortar, yeah.
Martin, we were close, but we'll get it next time. And then my other comment is, Miles, thank you so much for being here, and we so appreciate the partnership with MetroPlan and my fellow colleagues who are really involved and really hands-on with MetroPlan. I so appreciate your support and efforts with that partner agency. You all do such important work for our region and with these topics of capital for the city, so thank you. It means a lot to me. I do see we have a comment online, so I'm going to hold my closing statement till then. Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you. We'll go to the public commenter now.
Mayor and Council, I have Tyler. Tyler, you can go ahead and address Mayor and Council.
Hello, Mayor and Council members. This is Tyler Denham. First off, I apologize if the audio is bad. I'm currently traveling outside of Flagstaff on a business trip. That said, I'm happy to hear the City Council discussing the big shift, as I believe it's an important topic for Flagstaff's future. I am supportive of the changes that are part of the big shift, and after looking over the city staff's presentation, I think the best way to support it is with changes to our engineering design standards and land use. Those seem to be the most effective policy levers, and there's actually a very interesting example of this in the presentation. I think you saw in Boulder, Colorado, when they reduced the speed limit signs by 5 miles per hour, traffic speed was unaffected. To reduce traffic speed, they had to change the design of the road, how it's physically built. A nice, clear illustration of the difference between real and merely decorative changes. I also have a thought to share on potential hesitancy to embrace the big shift. I think a lot of hesitancy is motivated by a view that the status quo balance of transportation modes is natural, but that's mistaken. There's nothing natural about Americans generating 16,000 vehicle miles traveled per capita while the British generate only 7,000. Or about Americans dying to traffic fatalities at a rate of 13 per 100,000 residents, while in Japan it's only 4. There's no secret American gene that makes us drive more and die more than other similarly developed nations. We have these poor outcomes because our infrastructure prioritizes vehicle traffic. And our infrastructure doesn't happen organically. It's dictated by the choices of policymakers like yourself. So there is no natural, there's only choices. And keeping the status quo is as much an intentional choice as embracing change. So thank you very much for your time. Oh, actually, one more thing. Paul Byer wanted to give comment but had to drop off. He said he emailed his comments instead, and I encourage you to read those if you get the chance. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Tyler. All right. With that, Shimoni, the floor is yours.
I'll take us home. I just wanted to thank the team, Jeff, Nicole, Jenny, Martin, Miles, David Wessel, City Manager Clifton, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, and all the many other team players that are part of Team Flag and the Capital team that are working on this big shift. I am just beyond ecstatic about the direction that the City of Flagstaff is heading in as I'm heading out. So I feel really good about where we are heading and where we're at as a city, and I feel confident in the direction that you all, with your leadership and accountability, will take the community to. This is about, I think, like 3 years of fairs put into one agenda item so this was a lot, and I really appreciate your attention, council members and staff, to seeing this agenda item through. There's a lot on this, and I think we covered a lot of ground really efficiently, so thank you, staff, for setting that up so smooth. I think, although Metro Plan is leading on many of these topics, and I'm so grateful for that, having council give clear support and direction on these points, I think will help staff tremendously and give staff that direction that they need to really see these ideas through, and not just on paper, but in action. So I'm grateful for council taking the time to do that. And I just wanted to end with, I remember my first meeting with Jeff, Rick Barrett, and Martin, and we met for an hour in the upstairs meeting room, and 5 hours later, Jeff comes out, and Martin and I are still talking, and we're still trying to figure it out, and Jeff goes, "Did you guys figure it out yet?" And we said, "Yes, we're on our way." And 3 years later, I really do feel like we are on our way, so just a fun reflection point, but thank you all so much. I'm just beyond grateful and very excited. Thank you, and have a great night.
Excellent. Anything else from council? All right. Yeah, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Jeff. Miles? Martin? Thank you. Jenny, I forgot her too.